let's stay in court. We know former FBI Director James Comey continues to maintain his innocence after the Trump administration accused him of committing perjury and lying under oath to Congress. Comey says he is not afraid and is ready to go to trial.
Joining us now to talk more about the case against James Comey is the Hill's legal guru, Zach Schonfeld. Good morning, Zach.
Good morning, Hillary.
So most people will remember Comey has been charged with 2 felony counts. Break that down for us.
Right, and these felony charges, they really go hand in hand with each other. At its core, this is a case about, did James Comey lie to Congress when he appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee back in 2020? There was a moment where he was being questioned by Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican from Texas, and was asked if he stood by earlier testimony that he had not authorized any leak into either the Trump-Russia investigation or into the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton and her emails and all of that. And James Comey at that hearing said that he had stood by that testimony. So the accusation here, it's a false statements charge accusing him of saying that that was effectively a lie and that he had in fact authorized some sort of leak.
So tell us about the attorney for the government who is going to be prosecuting this case, who presented it to the grand jury, which ultimately led to this indictment.
That's right. This came after a new U.S. attorney has been installed for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan. She is someone who came into Trump's orbit because she was one of his former personal lawyers back when he was facing criminal charges in Florida, the classified documents case that was dismissed after Trump's election victory. Lindsay Halligan was one of his attorneys there. And so Trump has now brought her into his own Justice Department, into that role as U.S. attorney. And according to some reporting, she has been the actual person, prosecuting this case, being in there with the grand jury. A lot of times, you bring that to a line prosecutor. It's not the U.S. attorney itself. So as we get closer now to James Comey's first court appearance next Thursday, one of the questions I have, will we see Lindsay Halligan being at the prosecutor table, or will there be one of those line prosecutors?
Now, we can't talk about Lindsay Halligan without reminding people about Eric Siebert, who had been in that role but resigned under extraordinary pressure from President Trump.
That's right. And this is the latest U.S. Attorney's Office where we have seen whoever was the official leading that U.S. Attorney's Office, resign or step away or be fired or be removed in some fashion. And then, here we are, a new U.S. Attorney comes in. And just within a few days here, we now have James Comey indicted. And really, the Trump administration and the Justice Department needed to act with speed here because there's a statute of limitations on this case. And it depends on when James Comey was testifying. That was at the end of September 2020. And so they were running up here on the statute of limitations coming up this week. So they were on the clock.
But we should say that Siebert obviously didn't think there was enough evidence to bring this case forward.
That's right, and there was some additional reporting from the New York Times and others suggesting that there was a memo internally within the U.S. Attorney's Office that had went to Lindsay Halligan saying that there was not probable cause to bring this case. Now, obviously, she has still decided to move this forward, but there is that reporting out there that essentially she was warned that this was not a case that should be brought.
So we have the indictment, but you listen to pundits, politicians out there over the weekend. Some of them argue this case may not even make it to a trial because of what the president has posted in the past on Truth Social. Explain that.
Yeah, there will be an opportunity for James Comey, of course, to raise his pre-trial motions. And one of the motions that you have to wonder that he's going to file is he going to try to make this argument that he's being selectively prosecuted? This is a motion that requires a very high bar. It is very difficult to get through. Even Donald Trump himself tried to file these motions back when he was criminally charged, arguing he was being selectively prosecuted. But the question becomes, with the amount of public statements that we've seen from the Attorney General and the President himself, does that change the equation here, and will a selective prosecution motion succeed if Comey does indeed file one?
So we also have to talk about the fact that the investigations at the FBI might not end with James Comey. The President's now talking about Christopher Wray.
Yeah, both Christopher Wray. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about New York Attorney General Letitia James, one of Trump's foes in New York. So there really are these questions of, is he going to charge these individuals who he has long been at odds with and they have been Trump foes? Obviously, we have James Comey, but really there are all of these big questions swirling about all these other officials, whether it be Christopher Wray, Letitia James, or anyone else.
But I'm so sorry. The word unprecedented, we seem to use that word a lot lately. This is also unprecedented.
Yeah, this in many ways, is unprecedented with the steps that we've seen, the President Trump take, specifically, urging this prosecution of FBI Director James Comey, of course, indicting, putting aside just the politics for a second, just any sort of case that you're going to bring against a former FBI director is quite a remarkable step, but especially so given what we've heard from the president himself.
So we know Comey's first court date is October 9th. What are we expecting to happen during that hearing? And do we know who the judge is going to be? And maybe more important, who appointed that judge?
Yes, we do. So his first court appearance, as you mentioned, will be a week from Thursday. This is going to be Comey's arraignment. So the basic thing is we expect he's going to enter his plea on this day. And you'd expect that plea to be not guilty based on the comments we've heard from Comey. So it's a very standardized procedure. I wouldn't expect necessarily to hear a lot more from Comey, maybe other than him saying the words not guilty in that proceeding. I should also note there's no cameras inside, so it's going to take place without any cameras like that. But in terms of the judge, as you mentioned, we do now know the judge who's been assigned to this case. This judge was appointed by former President Biden, so that is something to keep in mind as you talk about things like a selective prosecution motion. It's going to be up to that judge to decide whether it succeeds.
All righty, Zach Schonfeld, thanks so much.
Thank you.
By the way, you can always read Zach's column, The Gavel. It comes out on Wednesday morning.